Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Welcome to the BRCGS GFCP Global Standard Issue 3 webinar. My name is Barry Meikle, and as I said, welcome to this webinar. Just going to run through a couple of the topics that we're going to discuss today, So we're going to go through the transition of Allergen Control Group to BRCGS, some of the key changes between the different versions of the GFCP Global Standard between version 2 and issue 3. Some of the audit options that are available to you with this new issue 3, the BRCGS START program, and your options for combining the GFSI and GFCP audits. We'll go through the additional appendices which are in the standard, and then we'll go through some of the audit scheduling and GFCP Global Standard Issue 3 version 2 options. And then finally, we'll go through the GFCP Global Standard Issue 3 training that's available. So I just want to start with the transition of Allergen Control Group to BRCGS. A lot of you might be familiar with Allergen Control Group and either weren't aware of the transition or how and when it happened. The Allergen Control Group is the owner and operator of the Gluten Free Certification Program, and they were acquired on April 3rd, 2018 by BRCGS. BRCGS, who you may know as traditionally as BRC, they have rebranded as BRCGS, a leading brand in consumer protection organization. They're used by over 28,500 suppliers in over 130 countries. Customers of ACG will continue to receive the same high level of service and support which they've become accustomed to over the years. You'll more than likely be dealing with the same people. And BRCGS are often now a fundamental requirement of leading retailers, manufacturers, and food service organizations. BRCGS certification scheme offers comprehensive support to help new and established businesses achieve and maintain their quality and safety aims. For those of you that knew them, Paul and Deb Valder have retired as of May 31st of this year, and we wish them all the very best in their retirement. I think they can be very proud of what they've achieved with the business, starting the business off in around 2011, 2012, I think it was, certainly before my time, and we certainly wish them all the best. The Allergen Control Group website is still in operation, and that will remain the case for some time yet. The intention, however, is to move all products and services over to the various BRCGS websites eventually. So I will be inviting questions at the end of each slide or each section. Please feel free to use the attendee questions box to send me any questions. I do actually have one question here already, so I'll just move on to that. Thank you very much to Neroli. With the change in ownership, is there any change to the existing GFCP international trademark? So Neroli is referring to one of the 3 trademarks that we allow our certified facilities to use on their packaging. So we have Beyond Celiac in North America endorses the program, the Canadian Celiac Association in Canada endorses the program, and we also have an international trademark for use outside of North America. So there will not be any change to this trademark. The existing trademark does state glutenfreecert.com across the front. This website used to be in operation. It currently now redirects to the Allergen Control Group website. And the footnote to accompany this trademark is trademark of the Allergen Control Group used under license. So there may be some confusion about whether it's Allergen Control Group, is it BRCGS? So it will change eventually, but it does unfortunately involve lawyers and trademark rights people, so it may take some time. As with when the NFCA rebranded to Beyond Celiac in 2015, a suitable time was given to grandfather out the old trademark. I believe around 18 months was given. It's usually a case of when people submit their labels for approval or new products for approval. That's when we will enforce the change. Beyond Celiac and the Canadian Celiac Association, who lend their trademarks to our program, own their own trademarks. So our takeover by BRCGS, or sorry, the Allergen Control Group takeover by BRCGS does not affect their trademarks. So I'm just going to field another question here from Yuxel. Thank you very much for your question, Yuxel. Are the 3 logos to remain on their certificate? So Yuxel's talking about the certificate of recognition that a site will receive at the end of the audit process once they've achieved the certification. Yes, the 3 trademarks, the 3 logos shall remain on the trademark. Thank you very much for the question, Yuxel. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a couple of the key changes between GFCP version 2 and issue 3. First point is consistency. we've made some improvements there. The format of the standards has been updated to align with the suite of standards from BRCGS, so it will look fairly familiar to those that are familiar with the BRCGS Food 8 standard, for example. Certification bodies must now be accredited to ISO 17065 or ISO 17021, which results in a more consistent approach to auditing and managing the standard. The ISO 17021 is a management system certification, and the ISO 17065 covers requirements for CBs. The focus, the generic and prerequisite programs and HACCP requirements have been removed. For version 2 of the standards, this was included to ensure that all sites were operating to a basic and minimum standard. Although since many other sites were certified to a GFSI scheme, these requirements were deemed surplus requirements. So consequently, these two aspects were removed from the standard, from the Issue 3 standard. So we feel this provides a clearer focus on gluten control measures. Sites that are not GFSI certified at this time will be required to adopt the BRCGS START program or an equivalent global markets program to ensure that the HACCP requirements are being met, they're being covered in the audit process. Sampling and testing, we've brought out a guide to best practices for sampling and testing and risk management for gluten, and this was added to Issue 3 as an appendix. The sampling guide is intended to help the manufacturers committed to producing gluten-free products, regardless of whether they are manufacturing their products in a dedicated gluten-free facility. It provides an overview of best practices for developing sampling plans and testing protocols to detect gluten in a wider variety of foods and on different environmental surfaces. And this helps them support gluten-free claims. And then moving on to grain handlers and suppliers, at the request of both gluten-free manufacturers and the grain handling industry, which supplies gluten-free manufacturers, an appendix detailing the requirements for grain suppliers was developed. This appendix specifies the unique conditions required in a grain handling environment in order to ensure gluten-free grain ingredients. The appendix fills a gap that is generally recognized as a constraint in advancing the gluten-free market, and we'll come on to the appendices later on. So moving on to the second half of this, the other amendments, we've made improvements on clarity. Version 2 of the standards combined the requirements with recommended guidance. The industry working group that we had to develop the Issue 3 standard felt that it was difficult to distinguish between the requirements and the guidance. Therefore, all guidance has been removed from Issue 3, so only the requirements remain. We will be developing an interpretation guide. This is due to come out hopefully sometime in August, so very soon indeed. Finished product specifications, clause 3.6 has been added to the standard to address these requirements. These provide key data to demonstrate that the products meet both customer and legal requirements and reassure the user in the safe consumption of the product. Again, the working group identified that version 2 of the standard lacked any requirements relating to the finished product. So as such, clause 3.6 has been added. And for customer complaints, the importance of recording and investigating customer complaints is well recognized, as they provide companies with suggestions for improvement and cause them to investigate trends which could indicate a failure in the gluten-free management system. Version 2 of the standard did not deal with customer complaints, therefore clause 3.11 was added into Issue 3 to fill the gap. And finally, document control. Clause 6 has been added. So we feel that robust document control procedures are necessary for the success of any food safety management system. So therefore clause 6 was added to the standard to ensure document control procedures are in place. And again, I'll take any questions that you may have at this time. So one question I do have here is, has the format of the audit report changed? So yes, the format of the audit report has changed, going from what I said before about all the guidance being removed and the clauses that have been left. It just mirrors the clauses in the standard, in the Issue 3 standard. It's currently in the final stages of development, and we are hoping that very soon it will be ready, and definitely for August 1st. As I said, there will be an interpretation guide which comes out very soon as well. So Appendix 1 covers qualification, training and experience requirements for the auditors. So it's the certification body's responsibility that auditors meet the following mandatory prerequisites and requirements. So I'm not going to read all these out in full, but just needless to say that auditors are fully qualified and authorized to conduct audits on our behalf. So all of the approved BRCGS certification bodies for the GFCP can be found either on the Allergen Control Group website or on the BRCGS directory. Moving on to Appendix 2, which covers the GFCP Global Standard product scope categories. These have changed slightly from GFCP version 2 to match the BRCGS Food Safety Issue 8 scope categories. These changes will be reflected on your GFCP Certificate of Recognition, or CORE, after your first audit under the Issue 3 standards. So you may notice some changes if you recognize a certain number of scope categories before. You may have additional ones, or you may have fewer depending on what your business activities cover. So Appendix 3 covers the GFCP Global Standards Certificate of Recognition template. So this is just an instruction more for the certification bodies, for just a list of what should be on there at a minimum. Appendix 4 covers requirements for grain handlers. These are additional requirements that apply to only those sites that have grain elevators or that purchase grains directly from the farmer. However, the final assessment on whether these requirements apply to your business must be made by the site itself. We can give you pointers or give you guidance, but the ultimate decision will rest with you. Many grains are inherently gluten-free, but because all grains are harvested, stored and transported using the same equipment, gluten-free grains are often contaminated with gluten. We're asking that grain suppliers conduct a risk assessment to determine if grain purchased from farmers can be effectively cleaned of wheat, barley, rye, triticale to an acceptable level. Although grain cleaning, sorting and sieving equipment can be very effective in removing gluten, on-farm controls may still be necessary. Moving on to Appendix 5, which is the Guide to Best Practices for Sampling and Testing and Risk Management for Gluten. The sampling guide provides an overview of best practices for developing sampling plans and testing protocols to detect gluten. And this approach is explained in 5 steps. So evaluate the risk of contamination first. All manufacturers must evaluate the risk of contamination with gluten for all incoming materials and for each processing step before developing a sampling program. The objective is to ensure that the finished product meets regulatory requirements or a lower limit imposed by the site. Defining the sampling parameters. The parameters of a sampling plan greatly depend on the outcome of the risk analysis. So it's important that your risk assessment is robust to develop your parameters for sampling. Determining the testing methodology. There's currently no general agreement on a single best analytical method that should be used to measure the gluten content of all food products. The choice of testing method depends on the product, and it also takes into consideration the fact that each testing method has its own strengths and weaknesses. There's a table in this section for comparison of ELISA and lateral flow devices. If you go to the resources and then the testing and lab section on the Allergen Control Group website, this will provide you a list of experts who will be able to guide you further in these matters. Moving on to interpreting test results. The GFCP Global Standard mandates a threshold of less than 20 parts per million or lower, depending on regulatory limits of the country of destination. Manufacturers may set a stricter threshold than this if they prefer. So, for example, you may set a threshold of less than 10 if that's what you want to meet. But then, obviously, your testing results must reflect this. And then to validate the program, this covers validation of test kit, food matrix, and cleaning procedures. And again, the resources and testing and lab section on the ACG website will have a list of people that can help you with this. So to cover the audit options that come with Issue 3, there are 3 main options. You can combine your GFCP audit with a GFSI benchmarked scheme audit. And the focus of this audit, of a combined audit rather, is on the GFCP Global Standard requirements in conjunction with any other third-party food safety management system audit. It's the standalone audit, the focus of which is only on the GFCP Global Standard requirements. So as I mentioned previously, from the introduction of Issue 3, all GFCP certified facilities will be required to have a GFSI certification of some kind. So if you're not currently GFSI certified, that will need to be added to your next GFCP audit. We can also combine your audit with a GFSI Global Markets Program. So the focus of this type of audit is on the GFCP Global Standard in conjunction with a GFSI Global Markets Program audit. If you are currently GFSI certified but not GFCP, simply ask your CB to add the GFCP audit portion to your upcoming GFSI audit. If the GFSI audit is too far in the future, you may have a standalone audit if you prefer. However, this will require that you already have the GFSI certification. The GFCP portion of the audit will add 1/2 day to your audit duration. Okay, so I shall move on to the BRCGS START program. It's actually released August 1st. So this is the BRCGS GFSI Global Markets Program. It's currently for non-GFSI certified sites. It's aligned with the GFSI Global Markets Program. The standard is free to download from the BRCGS bookshop. It uses auditors that meet the competency requirements of BRCGS. If you find that an auditor is approved to audit the BRCGS Food 8 standards, they can also audit to START. It enables sites to appear in the BRCGS directory, as does GFCP. And it uses requirements based on the BRCGS Food Safety Issue 8 standard to provide effective stepping stones towards full BRCGS certification. It offers 2 levels of certification depending on the site's preference, basic and intermediate. So the basic level of certification provides the focus is solely on food safety and legality, and the intermediate level certification begins to introduce quality management system elements and builds on aspects of the basic level. There's no restriction on how long a site can stay at a certain level. We don't expect to see a progression, so you're not forced to move up to a level that you're not comfortable with. So for example, if you decide to go for basic certification and you're quite happy with that, your customers are happy with that level of certification, we won't press you to proceed higher up the certification levels. Again, if you're on intermediate, we won't press you to move higher. There is no pressure to move on, but the intention of the BRCGS START program is to provide a stepping stone to full GFSI certifications. The customers will move on to the Food 8 standard eventually, but again, there is no requirement to do so. For existing GFCP customers who are being asked to join the START program, we will be waiving the service fee for the first year's audit, which is £150 for the service fee, so it's around $250 Canadian or $200 US. Just going to take a couple of questions here while I can. So a question from Lisa Mullen at Nairn's Oatcakes. Hi Lisa. If you choose a standalone GFCP audit and have GFSI certification, will length of GFCP audit be recalculated? Yes. So depending on the level of GFSI certification you wish to take, a full Food 8 audit will take 5 days, and that will include a half-day portion of GFCP audit. I'll go on to the audit lengths a little bit later, but just in summary, the BRCGS START program is approximately 1 day, and then plus a half day for your GFCP, depending on your level of certification, size of your facility, and things like that. David Paquet, is BRCGS START the same as SQF Fundamentals? I believe so. I do know that SQF do have their own version of the Global Markets Program. As of yet, I was unaware of its name. So if that is the SQF GFSI Global Markets Program, then yes, it is equivalent. It's not the same, but it's equivalent. And then from Aline, is BRCGS START GFSI benchmarked? It's not GFSI benchmarked, it's a GFSI Global Markets Program. So only the full GFSI programs like the Food 8 standard are benchmarked, but they are a GFSI Global Markets Program. So I shall move on to the GFCP Gluten Free Management System template. So this is a template gluten free management system that we developed last year. And it's really to help the fledgling businesses that don't have a robust gluten-free management system program in place. We feel that it's an entire package. It covers everything you need to do to ensure the gluten-free status of your facility. We understand that consultants and people like that can be rather expensive. So we developed this binder set to provide that for you. It's $2,500. It is available on the Allergen Control Group website. You can follow the link at the bottom of the slide if the link is active. If not, just copy and paste it into your browser. It comes in 10 sections. It's a downloadable manual, which is comprised of editable Word documents. There's a basic structure of a document, and we've left key portions of it editable to insert the site's own parameters, details about responsible people, and things like that. So we feel it's a really good product and really good value for money. As I said, it's $2,500, and that provides you with the download. And if you buy the full package, which includes the binder and divider set, we will mail those to you. So I'll move on to options for combining your GFSI and GFCP Global Standard Issue 3 audit. This will talk a little bit more about audit duration for those that are interested in that. So the GFCP audit can be combined. It can be undertaken at the same time as a GFSI benchmarked scheme audit. The GFCP portion will add 1/2 day to the duration of the audit. If your GFSI and GFCP audits are not currently combined and you would like to combine them, you must bring the audit for the standard with the later expiration date forwards. So for example, if your GFCP certificate expires in August and your BRC audit is not due until December, you can bring your BRC Food 8 audit back to the August so that you can combine the two. In the past, we have allowed extensions to our GFCP cores to allow this to happen, but we will no longer be offering that service. You can combine with the GFSI Global Markets Program. The BRCGS Start basic level audit will take 1 day, around 6 to 8 hours. The intermediate level will take 1 to 1.5 days. Again, depending on the size of the size of the site, the number of staff, the complexity of the operation, and things like that can have an effect. And for both of these options, you need to add 1/2 day for the GFCP portion of the audit. So we're talking 1.5 days to 2 days for between the basic and the intermediate. There's also a standalone option purely on the GFCP Global Standard requirements. The site will only be able to have a standalone GFCP audit provided it already has a GFSI benchmark scheme certification. The standalone option is offered where sites prefer not to combine with their GFSI benchmark scheme audit. If you don't want to combine the two, or you just prefer having them at opposite ends of the year, say for example one's in January, one's in July, you don't want to combine. There is the cost saving issue with, cost saving measure with combining the two audits, but we don't force anybody to combine if they don't want to. As I said, if you do have a standalone GFCP audit, you must have that GFSI certification at some point during the year as well. Okay, so I shall move on to audit scheduling and the slight differences between GFCP Global Standards version 2 and issue 3. So I'm just going to quickly run through the process as it was previously. So for those of you that have been GFCP certified in the past, previously the GFCP did send a reminder to schedule GFCP audits and to renew your Schedule A. This used to take place between around 120 to 90 days before your core expiry. Then your site scheduled your audit with the certification body. The audit was then conducted by the certification body. You would then close your non-conformances. You were given 28 days after the audit date to close your non-conformances, submit those to the auditor. The auditor would then send the report to the certification body who conducted a technical review. The certification body then sent the report to Allergen Control Group, now BRCGS, to conduct our own technical review, and then BRCGS would then request that the certification body would issue the certificate of recognition, and the CB would then do that. So a lot of people were getting confused between the different companies, the different roles in what we all did. So I hope that lays it out as how it was undertaken, and certainly how it may be done in the future. So for issue 3, there's only a slight change in that. So BRCGS will no longer send out any core expiry reminders. It's the responsibility of the site and the certification body to manage the audit process and to manage their own certificate expiry. So ideally, we would recommend to schedule your audit with your certification body a minimum of 42 days before your certificate expiry, because you will now be listed on the BRCGS directory. If your certificate expires, that could obviously have a negative impact on your listing on the directory. So we recommend 42 days because of the time it takes to go through the process. Your audit is conducted by the certification body. Again, you're given the 28 days after your audit to close out your non-conformances, if you have any. Your auditor will then send the closed report to the certification body, who will then conduct their technical review, and then the certification body will issue the core on or before day 42 after the audit. So this is why we recommend that you schedule your audit well in advance of your certificate expiry. Your certificate expiry date will stay static, so it will be the same date every single year. So having your audit a little bit earlier won't have an impact on your expiry date. BRCGS, as we're now known, will no longer conduct the technical reviews of audit reports. This is because all of our CBs will be accredited to ISO 17021 and or ISO 17065. Please remember that if your core expires, it will show as expired on the BRCGS directory. We will no longer be issuing core expiry reminders, temporary extensions, or extensions in order to combine with your GFSI program audit. So I'm just going to take one question that I have here. Will the management of the Schedule A change? Currently, we are contacted by GFCP for a renewal of the document. So in the interim, that job used to fall to Deborah Valder. So as I said previously, she has now retired. So in the interim, I will be handling the Schedule A's, signing them, renewing them, etc. That function will eventually pass to one of our new admin staff who actually joined us today. As far as I know right now, the management of the Schedule A will continue as it has previously. It will be the certification body's responsibility to ensure that all documentation is in place before your audit. So if your Schedule A is showing as not being valid, they will hopefully flag that up for you. And again, GFCP or BRCGS will not remind you to update or renew your Schedule A. And again, just one small note on Schedule A, it's not valid, it's not required to be valid at all times throughout the year. It's only required to be valid at your audit. So there's a valid until date on the Schedule A for those that you are familiar with it. That date need only extend beyond the date of your audit. It doesn't need to be renewed immediately after your audit. It's not. It doesn't have to be valid all year. There's no minimum or maximum length of time that it should be valid for. All you have to worry about is that it is valid for your audit, and if so, once your audit passes, you don't need to renew it either until your next audit or until you want to add or subtract products to it. And a question from Gideon. Is it 28 days after audit date, business dates, or calendar date? Good question. It's 28 calendar days. So if your audit is 31st of March, April 1st is day one. So you need to submit your corrective actions to your auditor, have them closed off by day 28, which in my example would be April 28th. And then again, the certification body has a further 14 days to review the report and issue your certificate. So I'm just going to go on to issue 3 training. So we do have training for industry available on our website. The link is there. Again, you can probably copy and paste that link. It is about a 4 to 6 hour course. It's conducted entirely online, self-paced online course. You can start at any time. I believe it's comprised of about 6 to 8 sections, and each section is distinct in that you can complete one section. I think it takes about 25 to 30 minutes to complete each section, and you can stop at that point. It will save your progress. You can go away and come back a couple of days later if you want to sit it all in one go. You can do, but it is in that distinct 8 separate sections that you can save progress, so you can log in and log out and take the course in bite-sized chunks if that's how you prefer to do it. So automatic access is provided to the course after successful registration and payment. The training provides you access to an interactive video presentation with voiceover. Its language is in English. There are tentative plans to develop the training in French. We have actually had recently, we did have a training event in French, which was held this month, and it has an English closed captions and voiceover. So access expiry, you'll have 3 months access to the course from registration. So that's from date of payment before your license will expire. So just make sure that once you do register, once you do pay for the course and log in for the first time, that access will expire in 3 months. I'm sure you can email us if you have a serious problem completing the course in those 3 months. But for the time being, the 3 months access has been set. For those of you that purchased the training for the early bird special, which happened last November, we have sent out an email recently reminding you to complete your course. We did extend the access to the course just because of a few problems that we'll be having, and obviously with the training coming out in November and the standard not being released until February, a lot of people didn't realize that you could complete the training right away. But so yeah, we've extended that. So for the assessment, there is an exam at the end, which is separate again, and a minimum of 80% in the final exam is required to be awarded the certificate. Certificate access, you'll have an online portal which you can log on to print off your certificate upon successful completion. So I just want to thank all of you for attending. Thank you very much. I'd just like to draw your attention to the Food Safety Americas conference that is taking place in San Antonio, Texas next May 12th to 14th. It's your chance to book now if you go into the BRCGS website and follow the links to the conference. We're in the process of planning the conference now, and we're planning to make a bigger and better event than it ever has been. So we hope to see you all there. Again, if you have any questions, I'll hang on another couple of minutes at the end here just to field some more questions. If there aren't any questions, thank you very much for attending. I hope it was useful. You have my contact details there. That's my email address and my direct dial. If you want to get in touch, please feel free if you want to ask any questions or to email me after the event. Okay, so I have one more question here from Anamika. Is this training compulsory? So I presume you're referring to the issue 3 industry training, Anamika. Training is compulsory to take our training. is not compulsory. You can go out there and you can find an equivalent course, but you must make sure that it covers all the aspects of the training. We don't provide a list of equivalent courses because we don't have one. We don't provide that, but all we ask is that the course that you do take has a focus on gluten awareness and it covers the gluten legal requirements. So that is all that we do require. Okay, I think that's all the questions that we have. Again, thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much.